project that I proposed for the Mobile Fellowships program was to implement mobile technology in my printmaking class. I think there's a strong parallel between printmaking and graphic design in terms of the idea of an iterative process, thinking of generating lots of different ideas to solve one common problem. I thought that it was a kind of natural pairing to be able to bring in some technology to both shorten the process of figuring out all of those pitfalls, and also get the students familiar with some kind of versions of some programs they might encounter if they were going to go on into a graphic design field. And so what I proposed was to give my students an iPad to use 24/7 for the entire semester. Then we used several apps within that for a few different purposes. So we used Adobe Photoshop Sketch, which the students were able to take a photo, upload it into that program, and then it has you can add layers that then you can draw on top of it. So again, they were able both to kind of create streams of iteration, so they could take the same photo and do kind of different drawings based on that same image. But then we could also start talking about, well, if you were going to print this, what would be the line work, and then what would be the part of the image that maybe we could put just some color behind it. So starting to think about that idea of how do you break this image down into multiple layers? How do you make that have a sense of depth, and again, how could you have the same line work but have the potential for, well, one background could look like this, one background could look like this. I really wanted to find a way for them kind of quickly, without having to redraw the same thing 10 different times. They have the same map, and then they're able to expand on that in a bunch of different ways. And that's the same thing that printmaking does in an analog way. But so they were able to look at it from both the digital and the analog standpoint. A few of the other Adobe programs that we used was Adobe Capture, which does some neat things. You can basically make a pattern by taking a photo of anything, and it kind of creates a kaleidoscope effect. So we did a project in which they had to incorporate their self-portrait with a pattern. And so they were able to generate their own patterns in this really quick kind of way that could be incorporated into Adobe Illustrator Draw. And in using that, they were able to plan for a 4-color reductive relief print. By kind of planning out that process in the app, they were able to kind of have a little more confidence going into that, of knowing what they were supposed to carve when. The final prints have this nice kind of melding between something that has a little bit of a kind of a posterized, really graphic quality, but also having some of those hand-cut marks in them. So it doesn't look just like something that could have been digitally output. It has that look of the hand, but it also has a little bit of that graphic sensibility as well that I think they really respond to. I tried to not overload them with a million different things to use. I wanted them to develop some capability and competency and familiarity with the apps. So for most part, by keeping it simple, I think it was pretty successful, being able to start thinking through the process of layering just from the get-go, rather than trying to make a drawing and then translate it to successive pieces of tracing paper or things like that can be troublesome. They were able to just add another layer into that, Adobe program, and draw on that and hide that and try another one. Or one of the things I like about printmaking and teaching printmaking and design and art in general is really thinking about the process, that it's not just the product, but how do we arrive at that product? And so there was a sense of kind of parallel thinking in using some of the apps with the iPad that allowed the students to think about that sense of process as they were working.